Hello everyone. I know you are watching this video before bed, so before diving into the past and falling asleep, please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, write where you are from and how much time you have. Relax and enjoy. You wake before the bells. There are no birds outside the window, only wind and the dry scrape of branches. The sky is gray, not with rain, but with the ash of chimney fires and something heavier. Something that lingers. Your fingers are stiff. You've slept in your underlayers again, too tired to undress, too aware that dressing again would cost you warmth you couldn't afford to lose. The air smells faintly of vinegar, piss, and mildew. Normal now. You sit up, your knees crack, the cot protests. Somewhere in the hallway beyond your room, something thuds against wood, followed by coughing. Then silence. It's time. The mask is always cold. You run a rag through the beak, checking the dried petals and herbs inside. Rosemary, mint, a dried orange peel you stole from a merchant's cart 2 weeks ago. They're all useless, but they keep the worst smells at bay. Slightly. The eye lenses are fogged with last night's breath. You wipe them clean. Your reflection stares back from the polished copper basin on your desk, a gaunt, waxy face. Eyes ringed in yellow and gray. You barely remember the face without the mask anymore. You pull the mask on, strap it tight, adjust the lenses. Then the gloves, the apron, the robe, the cane. You are ready. You are never ready. The streets are empty. Not in the way that means peace. Not the quiet of early morning markets or late night prayer. This is the kind of empty that hums. A hollow kind. Doors are shut. Windows are shuttered. Laundry hangs frozen in place, untouched by hands too afraid to leave the house. You pass a dog chewing on a bundle of rags. You don't look closely. The first house is marked with a black smear over the doorframe. Tar and ash mixed with wine. The family inside paid for you 3 days ago. The payment wasn't gold, because no one has gold. It was a bag of rye flour and a half-broken crucifix. You knock once, no one answers. You knock again, then you push the door open. Inside, the heat of sickness, not warmth. Just the rank, close air of bodies that haven't moved, washed, or spoken for days. You lift your cane and tap the floorboards ahead of you as you walk. Not because you're blind, but because it makes you feel like someone official. Someone brave. There are 3 people inside. 2 in bed, 1 on the floor. The child is still breathing, you think. The mother is not. The 3rd is already stiff, curled like a sleeping dog. You crouch to examine the child, skin hot red, eyes glazed. You draw the thin blade from your sleeve and lance the boil beneath her armpit. The pus runs dark. You do what you can. Wrap the wound. Pour vinegar over your gloves. Pretend it will help. You leave without speaking. Outside, you pause by the well, not to drink. To write, your ledger is bound in oiled leather. You note the house, the date, the state of the bodies. You make a mark next to the girl's name. It means alive. For now, you flip back a few pages. A house you visited last week had a boy her age. Same symptoms. You check the next page. His name is crossed out. You do not cross hers out. Not yet. A man watches you from across the street. He leans from a second-story window, skin pale, lips tight. His eyes follow your mask like it's a weapon. You nod to him. He slams the shutter closed. You check on 6 more homes before midday. Each one smells different. One reeks of mold, another of garlic. Some are too quiet. Others echo with weeping, coughing, prayers that stop halfway through. At the 4th house, a woman asks you if her son is going to live. You don't speak. You aren't supposed to. She keeps asking anyway, voice rising in pitch, until she's begging. Screaming, then sobbing. You close the door behind you and leave her to her son. You write down her name. You mark the ledger. You keep walking. At the apothecary, you exchange a favor for more camphor. The man behind the counter no longer smiles when he sees you. He wipes the coins you give him with wine before taking them, even though you both know it does nothing. You ask if he has willow bark. He laughs. You ask again. He doesn't respond. You leave with a packet of something labeled plague powder. You know it's ash and ground rose hips. You'll still pretend it works. At sunset, you return to your room. You scrub your gloves with vinegar. You burn a strip of cloth from your robe. You place a drop of oil in the beak of your mask and breathe it in like it matters. Outside your window, the bells ring, not for vespers, for bodies. They're being hauled to the pits. You watch them go by, carts of limbs and cloth, stacked like firewood, wheeled past by silent men with rags over their faces. No prayers, no names. You mark the end of the day in your book. You close the ledger. You sit on the edge of your cot, breathing the silence. The mask still smells like death, and you still wear it, because someone must. You wake coughing. Something sharp and dry is lodged in your throat, soot perhaps, or a scrap of wool from the inside of your mask. You sit up slowly, spine aching like a snapped bowstring, and swallow hard. The taste is bitter. Bitter and strangely metallic, like licking old coins or breathing too long beside corpses. You spit into the basin by your bed. The phlegm is dark. You don't look at it too closely. The candle burned down to nothing while you slept. Its stub is a puddle of wax clinging to the wood, cold and useless. Outside, it is not yet morning, but it isn't night either. That hollow space in between. The hour of watchmen and ghosts. You do not light another candle. You've been warned flames draw vermin. And lately, in the corners of your room, you've seen things move that don't belong in daylight. The robe is damp when you pull it on. It hasn't dried properly in days. Vinegar and sweat cling to the fabric in equal measure, and there's a sourness in it now that no amount of scrubbing removes. The mask goes on last, as always, and though you try not to breathe too deeply through the nostrils of the beak, the scent of mildew and crushed lavender floods your sinuses instantly. A cleaner smell than what awaits you in the streets, but somehow worse, familiar. You check your satchel, half a roll of linen bandage, a few rusted scalpels, one cracked vial of mercury, corked and taped shut. You have no more blessed salt, and the last of your laudanum was stolen by a coughing man 2 nights ago. But you still have the ledger. The pages are swelling from damp, but the ink holds. Names hold. Names always do. Outside, a rooster crows somewhere in the distance. Then it stops. The silence that follows feels final. Your first visit is a bakery. Or it was once. Now the loaves are gone, and the warm scents of flour and yeast have been replaced by a reek of rat droppings and old blood. A boy lies on the floor near the oven, limbs splayed, mouth open. A handkerchief has been stuffed between his teeth to keep him from biting through his tongue. His eyes flutter as you enter. The woman kneeling beside him looks up, startled. Her apron is stiff with old flour and streaked red at the edges. She clutches the boy's hand like it might still hold warmth. When she sees your mask, her lips tighten, but she does not speak. She does not need to. You kneel beside the boy, the floor still warm beneath your knees from the oven's dying heat. You place 2 fingers at his throat. Pulse, erratic. Fever, violent. Skin, blotched yellow around the lips. You remove the cloth from his mouth gently. His lips are cracked. You look inside, black spots on the tongue. Soft, sunken gums. He moans, a low, gurgling sound. There's nothing to be done. You do what you can anyway. You boil water in the hearth, watching the flames catch on old loaves. You cleanse your instruments in a shallow tin bowl, scrubbing them with sour wine and whispering prayers you no longer believe in. The woman does not interrupt. She just watches. With your cane, you indicate the boy's arm. The swelling there is too tight. You point to the iron poker beside the hearth. She nods slowly, understanding what you intend. You drain the wound. You lance the arm, and the pus spurts like a rotten fruit torn open. The boy does not scream. He has no voice left. You pack the wound with dried sage leaves wrapped in cloth. It's all you have. Afterward, the woman weeps. You place a dried sprig of rosemary on the boy's chest. You do not lie to her. You do not say he'll recover. You mark his name in your ledger with a thin, curved line, a waiting mark. Not alive. Not dead. Just ... waiting. You leave with flour dust on your knees. Outside, the street is beginning to move again. Doors creak open an inch. Faces appear in high windows. Children too sick to play, too restless to sleep, sit on stoops swaddled in rags, watching your every step. You've stopped reacting to their stares. You no longer know whether they fear you or want to become you. Someone calls your name from a window above. You look up, surprised. No one calls for you anymore. It's the butcher's apprentice. He's paler than you remember. His voice cracks as he waves a cloth at you, beckoning you into the alley behind the shop. You hesitate, glance at the roof lines, the chimneys. You follow. The cellar stinks of meat and wet stone. He leads you down without speaking. The stairs are slick. The light grows dim. You reach the base of the steps and see it immediately. A form beneath a stained sheet, breathing heavily. The apprentice points. You lift the sheet. The butcher is dying. His chest rises and falls in bursts, each breath wheezing through lips coated in foam. His belly is distended, and there are purple splotches along the neck and jaw. You recognize the pattern instantly. But you also see the chain around his neck. Silver, polished. You lift it gently, turning it to the candlelight. A locket. You open it. Inside 2 locks of hair and a scrap of paper inked with his son's name. The boy who vanished last month. You realize this is the butcher's second death. The slow one. The one that leaves the body breathing, but the man gone. You close the locket. You place it back. You give the apprentice 2 options. One is a cup of laudanum, if you can find it. The other ... is quiet. The apprentice does not speak. He just nods. When you return to the street, your robe is heavier. The sun is trying to break through the clouds now, but the light is sickly and pale, like candlelight reflected in water. You sit for a moment on a stone bench outside the church and unlace your mask, letting the air touch your face for the first time all day. It's a mistake. The wind carries the scent of decay from the lower streets. Somewhere, dogs are fighting over something wet and unclaimed. A bell rings out again, once, then twice, then stops. You close your eyes. You press your thumb to your tongue and taste the ashes there. You don't remember how they got there. But you taste them every day. You are followed, not by one person. Not by a face you can name or a hand you can catch, but by movement. By eyes that vanish when you turn. By doors that creak open and then slam shut again. The sound of footsteps that never quite match your own. It began yesterday or the day before. Time is difficult now. Days bleed into one another like ink in water. You thought at first it was a thief. There are plenty. Or maybe a priest hoping for last rites. But neither would wait this long. Neither would shadow you in silence through 5 streets, 3 alleys, and a courtyard where crows were feeding. No, this is something else. Something patient. You work faster now. 3 patients this morning. 2 dead. 1 dying. The first is a washerwoman found curled in a washtub, her skin bloated, her fingernails blue. Her husband swears she was fine the night before. He lies, you think. You don't say it. You mark her down with a clean, deliberate hand. You give the husband a satchel of lime and instructions for burial. He doesn't look you in the eye. The second is already dead. A monk in a garden behind the cloister, face down among the thyme. A beautiful death, as far as they go. Peaceful. But the blotches on his scalp tell you what took him. You find his breviary still clutched in his hand. The pages are stuck together with dried blood. You don't take the book. You don't touch his robes. You burn the garden, not because it will help, but because it makes the survivors feel cleaner. The third is a child. She stares at you with hollow, defiant eyes as her father pleads. You examine her quietly. Lips are dry. Fever is low for now. She's still lucid, still stubborn. Her wrists bear the early signs, red rings, mottled veins. She spits at your boots and tells you to go back to hell. You want a smile. You don't. You hand the father a cloth soaked in camphor and vinegar. It won't save her. But it might make him feel like he tried. That's enough most days. You turn to leave. She calls after you, her voice rasping through the doorway. You'll be next. You do not turn around. The streets are quieter than usual. Not empty, nothing is ever truly empty in a city this sick, but still in a way that feels wrong. A flock of birds erupts suddenly from a rooftop as you pass. Pigeons, they take to the sky in a spiral like smoke. You glance upward just long enough to catch movement. A flash of red cloth on the roof, vanishing around a chimney. You quicken your pace. You take a longer route toward the river. By habit, you avoid the plague pits. Even masked, even layered in thick wool and herbs, the smell finds a way in. It lives in your teeth now. You can taste it when you sleep. You cross the bridge with your head down. You count each step, forcing your mind to silence. When you reach the other side, you don't look back. In the poorer quarter, a woman gives birth in the street. You arrive too late. The child is gone. The mother clutches the bundle to her chest, rocking back and forth, whispering something you can't hear. Her mouth moves like prayer, but there's no God in it. You try to speak to her, to offer something, anything. She does not react. Only when you reach for the infant does she bare her teeth. A growl, not words. A warning. You leave her. Some grief should not be touched. Later, you pass the same street and find the bundle abandoned beneath a shrine. Coins have been placed beside it, offerings, penance. You do not look beneath the cloth. You do not want to know. It rains in the afternoon. Not hard, just enough to make the world feel colder. The streets shine with filth and oil. You take shelter beneath the eaves of an old smithy. It's boarded shut, but someone is inside. You hear them breathing. The door opens a crack. A hand reaches out, small, dirty, trembling. It offers you something, a strip of cloth, soaked in oil and folded tight. A charm for protection. You accept it without a word. The hand withdraws. The door closes. By dusk, you have recorded 7 names. 3 were children. 1 was a noble woman with eyes already glazed before you reached her. 1 was a man who tried to bribe you to say he wasn't ill. His lips turned black an hour later. You did not take his coin. You mark their names. You carry them with the rest. You are not a healer anymore. You are a witness. That night, you return to your rooms and find the door ajar. Inside, the candle is already lit, and on your pillow, a feather, small, black, gleaming in the firelight. You pick it up slowly. No blood, no dust. Just a single, perfect plume. You check the windows, still locked. The chimney, clear. Nothing has been taken. Nothing is missing. Except your breath. You do not sleep that night. You sit by the candle, ledger in your lap, pen in hand. And you wonder, how long has someone been watching you? And more importantly, why haven't they stopped? There are rumors in every quarter of the city. Some crawl on their bellies like rats, clinging to alleys and whispers. Others ride from rooftop to rooftop, growing wings in the retelling. But this story moves differently. It doesn't skitter or fly. It walks, slow, methodical, impossible to dismiss. It comes to you in 3 separate mouths over 4 days. A gravedigger with no teeth, a boy who sells beetles, and a midwife with nails chewed to the bone. None of them give you a name. They just call him the man who doesn't die. You do not believe in fairy tales. You've watched too many men die begging for a second breath. Watched too many women pray over children who never open their eyes. You've buried infants with the umbilical cord still warm, seen bodies seize and stiffen in the middle of laughter. Death is not subtle. It does not forget. And yet, the rumor clings. Not because it's likely, but because no one ever says where the man came from. Only where he still is. He lives in a warehouse by the tannery. That alone should have been enough to keep anyone away. The smell there is the smell of drowned dogs and ruined leather. A scent that sinks through skin and lives beneath the fingernails. The floorboards are soaked in years of brine and piss. Even rats die here, but the man remains. You go on the 5th day, not because you believe, because you need something that isn't routine. You've written 37 names in your ledger this week. You no longer remember the faces that go with them. The sun is high but pale when you arrive. A nervous boy, no more than 12, points you toward the rear entrance of the warehouse with a hesitant gesture and a warning in his eyes. You push open the swollen door, the hinges groaning like a throat full of phlegm, and the smell strikes you harder than a fist. Rot, but not the rot of corpses, not exactly. This is older, denser. It clings to the inside of your beak like a sponge soaked in bile. He is seated on a stack of hides. He looks up as you enter, his eyes dull but focused, as if squinting through mist. His skin is gray in the shadowed light. Not pale gray, like ash in old fireplaces. His hands are wrapped in strips of cloth that were once white, now stained deep red and black at the fingertips. You see flies circling his shoulders. You see one land on his eyelid, rest a moment, and fly off. He does not blink. You ask his name. He gives none. You ask how long he's been here. He shrugs. You ask if he's in pain. He chuckles. It is not a pleasant sound. You move closer, heart slow but steady. You observe the sores on his neck open, weeping. A cluster of pustules bloom across his collarbone like blighted grapes. His breath is shallow but even. His limbs do not tremble. His eyes remain dry. You remove your gloves and take his wrist gently. No fever. Pulse, normal. Skin, necrotic. The contradiction is complete. He is dying but not dying. You ask permission to examine him further. He says nothing, only lifts his arms. You remove the cloths slowly, carefully, as if peeling back the skin of a fruit you don't wish to bruise. Beneath, the fingers are blackened, curled. Not from frostbite, from something slower. His fingernails are cracked and rimmed in dark green. One thumb is missing entirely, the bone exposed like the tip of a carved reed. Still, he does not wince. You ask if he can walk. He stands without effort. You ask if he can eat. He pulls a crust of bread from his sleeve, bites, chews, swallows. You ask what he remembers before this began. He pauses. Then, a woman. You wait, but he offers no more. You begin to understand. He is not a man defying death. He is a man whose body no longer understands it is supposed to die. You return each day. You bring bandages soaked in vinegar, herbs to mask the smell, water boiled twice over and once, a candle blessed by a priest who still believes his touch is holy. You do what you can, but the rot never retreats. It shifts, rearranges. Where you clean one sore, another forms. Where you wrap flesh, skin splits elsewhere. It's as though something inside him has forgotten how to stop unraveling. He begins to speak more. Not much, a sentence here, a question there. Once, he asks, "Do you think I'm cursed?" You tell him curses are for fools and cowards. He laughs again, then he says, "I hope so. Because if not, then this is just ... me." Later, he shows you the locket around his neck. It is rusted shut, the hinge fused. You do not ask what's inside. You do not want to know. On the 7th day, he asks you to bring your ledger. You hesitate. He repeats the request. You open it to the last page. Blank. He watches you closely, then gestures. You offer the pen. He scrawls one word. You can't read it. The letters don't match any name you know. You do not ask him to explain. When he hands the pen back, he simply says, "That's what I was. Before this." Then he leans back, closes his eyes, and says nothing more. You leave the warehouse near midnight. The fog is thick and yellow over the streets. The city is silent in that particular way you've come to dread, not from peace, but from exhaustion. There is no more screaming, no more bells, only breathing. As you walk, you think of the man. You think of his hands, his eyes, the way his body did not flinch even when the knife slipped too deep. You think of how little he asked of you, how much he gave you by simply enduring. And then, for the first time in months, you think of yourself. You realize you cannot remember the last time you felt pain, not real pain, not hunger, not cold, not grief. Just numbness, endless, flat numbness, a body that moves, a hand that writes, a voice that explains, but no feeling, no pulse, and for the first time, a thought creeps into your mind, unwelcome and cold. What if I am like him? What if you are already dead? In the old city, death has a sound. It begins softly, just a chime, a single toll from the belfry above the parish roof, one clear note that slips across tiled rooftops and stone courtyards. Then another, a rhythm, slow and even, like breath. Each toll marks a passing. The bell doesn't weep or beg. It simply announces. But now that bell is silent. You hadn't noticed at first. There was too much noise in the early weeks, the clatter of shutters slamming shut, the coughing in every alley, the moans from behind nailed doors. There were other bells then, alarm bells, fire bells, the metallic rattle of the quarantine wagons. A dozen different sounds of panic, but now they're gone too. You realize this on a Tuesday, though you're no longer sure if days have meaning. You sit on a stone bench beside the water station, watching your hands tremble after treating 3 children from the same family. All of them died. One had your initials by chance, carved on the sole of his foot. You washed your gloves twice and still feel them stained. A sister from the convent approaches. You've seen her before, always at a distance, her veil gray with soot and a rosary clutched so tight her knuckles stay red. She sits beside you without a word. In her lap, a folded bundle wrapped in linen. When you ask if she needs your help, she shakes her head. It's already done, she says. But no bell. You don't understand at first. Then she tells you, the bell ringer died last week. Alone, in the tower, where he kept to avoid infection, no one replaced him. The bell rope hangs like a limp vine through the stairwell. Even the priests won't go up anymore. Do they know? You ask, the people. She looks at you with something like pity. Of course they know. That's why it's worse. There are rules. There have always been rules. Not just for treatment, but for memory. The dead are meant to be seen. Not in grandeur, there are no funerals now, but in dignity. A cloth drawn over the face, a name written in chalk, a prayer whispered before the body is taken. You've tried to honor these things. Even when they didn't matter to the dying, they mattered to you. They reminded you that this was not just disposal, that there had been a person here, even if for just a breath. But in the slums beyond the merchant wall, those rules are gone. You go there after sundown alone. You were warned not to. The guards are afraid. Not of disease, but of the anger that waits where coin does not reach. There are no wardens here, no officials. The plague has bled this place dry, and now even silence has abandoned it. And yet, someone is still collecting the bodies. You hear the cart before you see it. A rattling of uneven wheels over broken cobblestones. No horses, no call of bring out your dead. Just the creak of wood and the thud of something heavy being lifted. Then the roll, again, then stillness. You turn a corner and find it there. A 2-wheeled barrow, painted black long ago and now worn to splinters. Its driver is hooded in a way you haven't seen, neither doctor nor priest, no cross or mask. Just a shroud over the shoulders, loose and plain. He lifts a body from a doorway without looking down, as if placing firewood. The cloth slips from the corpse's face, but the driver doesn't notice. You move to cover it again, out of reflex. Your hands brush against cold skin. The man doesn't speak to you. Doesn't ask your purpose. You ask where he's taking them. He gestures vaguely north, past the canals, toward the marshes. You ask how long he's been doing this. He says nothing for a while. Then, long enough that I know who will die next. You ask what he means. He turns to face you, and for a second you think he might be wearing a mask like yours, but he isn't. His face is blank, smooth, expressionless. His eyes are clouded in a way you've seen before, but only in the dead. No bell, he says. No names, only weight. You feel your stomach shift. When he pushes the cart onward, you stay behind. That night, you dream of your own body being lifted, of your limbs folding as someone grunts beneath your weight. You dream of the cart, of the long road past the marshes. You dream of no one calling your name. In the morning, you write your own entry into the ledger. Not in ink, but charcoal, something that can be erased. You draw a line beside it. No date. Just a space waiting. The masks were never meant to last. You learned this early. The beak so iconic now was once a simple invention, a bulwark of herbs and superstition. Laurel, mint, rose petals, camphor. You stuffed them into the hollow curve until breathing through it felt like sucking air through wet linens. It didn't matter. It made the city seem distant, less real. But the paper mâche that formed the face cracks in the rain. The lacquer flakes in the heat. The linen ties fray from constant use. By now, you've repaired yours more times than you can count. Thread through the seams. Wax over the joints. It no longer looks like the others. Its shape is warped, the curve a little too long, the nostrils slightly torn. And in your reflection, you no longer recognize it. You've stopped removing it around others. Even when you drink, when you sleep in the corner of the infirmary, when you kneel beside a dying girl whose breath fogs the lens, it's there. At some point, the mask became your face. You tell yourself it's for safety, but deep down, you know it's shame. The physician's quarters are quieter now. At the beginning, there had been 20. You remember that number well, an even line of cloaked silhouettes, each reciting their oaths before the magistrate, the firelight flickering in the polished copper of their medallions. You all believed, or pretended to, that order could overcome the plague, that method and rigor could outpace despair. Now there are 6. 2 were taken by the disease. One jumped from the library roof after locking himself inside for 6 days, convinced the air had turned to poison. The others, no one knows. One day their pallets are empty, their boots are gone. A ledger left open on a final patient. You wonder if they fled, or simply walked into the fog and chose not to return. The infirmary has fewer patients now, not because the sickness is waning, but because fewer arrive. The streets are clogged with the uncollected, the dying, and the forgotten. Word has spread that care is pointless, that medicine does nothing, that plague doctors only arrive to record, not to heal. Some spit at you. Others pray as you pass, but not for you, for themselves, that your presence is not a curse. Once, a boy threw a stone. It struck your chest and bounced off your heavy cloak. He didn't run. He just stared, daring you to say something. You didn't. What could you have said? The fire began in the tanner's quarter. You saw it from the west tower, just a haze at first, then the full column of smoke, curling up like a black tongue into the morning sky. It spread fast. The buildings were dry, the wind high. By midday, the flames had leapt the canal. The bells didn't ring. No one came to fight it. You joined the watchers on the ridge. Silent figures, most in masks like yours, some with scarves, others barefaced and pale. Together you stood and watched the city burn. No one spoke. The silence was so complete you could hear the crackling from across the water. An old apothecary, a man you respected, muttered under his breath, "A blessing." You didn't ask what he meant. You knew. The fire would do what you couldn't. It would cleanse. It would stop the rot. It would erase the names from ledgers you had run out of ink to finish. Later that night, you walked into the ashes. You told yourself it was to check for survivors. But you knew better. You needed to see what the fire had taken. The streets were unrecognizable. Blackened beams, puddles of wax from melted candles, the fused shape of a door handle, now part of the stone it once rested against. In the center of the square, you found the remains of a wagon still smoldering. The bodies inside burned so cleanly, they looked like sculptures in an artist's unfinished gallery. You thought about the cart driver, the one who said he knew who would die next. You wondered if he had known about the fire. That night, you sat in the chapel alone. Your ledger lay open beside you. Pages curled from the heat. The ink on the last few names had run together blurred until you couldn't tell vowels from numbers. You removed your gloves. For the first time in days. Your hands were not what you remembered. Blistered, skin like parchment. Fingernails cracked to the quick. You pressed them together, trying to feel something. Warmth, pressure, pain, anything human. Then, slowly, you reached up and removed the mask. The air touched your skin like water. Your face felt raw, exposed, as if you had peeled something more than wax and cloth away. You looked down at the mask. Not a face. Not protection. A confession. At first, you think the plague has ended. There is a calmness, an eerie rhythm to the days now. No more cries echo down the alleys. No carts rumble over the cobblestones. No bells toll. The streets lie still under the heavy silence, like an empty stage waiting for actors who will never return. Your visits become shorter. Most homes are already empty. Either the occupants have fled or been taken. Doors hang open. In some neighborhoods, every window has been blacked out. You find chairs with meals half-eaten, candles melted to the floor, and beds with impressions of bodies that have not stirred in days. One evening, you pass a well where children used to play. The bucket rope is snapped. At the bottom lies a slipper. Just one. You do not know why that detail disturbs you more than the mass graves. The city, it seems, has stopped trying to survive. And now it simply waits. You return to your rooms and sit in the corner, as you always do. But now, your ledger remains closed. You haven't recorded a new name in days. It isn't that people aren't dying, they are. You can smell it in the air, feel it in the dust that coats your gloves. It's that no one is left to ask. No one to confirm a name, no one to light a candle. The rituals of death have vanished, and in their place is something more dangerous, forgetfulness. When the body becomes a pile of cloth on a bench, and the name is gone, what is left? You think back to the first month. How carefully you wrote each case, age, symptoms, duration, how you pressed the quill with purpose, believing every stroke brought order to chaos, believing you were doing something righteous. Now you look at those early pages, and they seem naive. Neat rows of death, as if a clean ledger could keep you from drowning in the tide. The ink has faded. The names blur. You wonder if one day, someone will open this book and read your own entry, scrawled in a different hand. You wonder if they'll care. The magistrate's office is boarded up. No one summoned you. You went on your own. Something about the silence demanded company, or authority, or explanation. But the hall is empty. The red seal on the door is faded, flaking at the edges. You break it without thinking. Inside, papers are scattered across the floor. Edicts, ration records, bribes wrapped in silk. A city's final words, abandoned mid-sentence. Behind the desk is a chair overturned, and beside it a goblet tipped on its side, a dark stain trailing from the rim. You do not look for the body. There is no need. Instead, you kneel and gather some of the pages, not the laws, not the budgets, just the letters, appeals for aid, pleas for supplies, desperate questions sent from homes that will never receive a reply. You read one aloud, slowly, as if your voice can grant the writer what the magistrate never did. Your breath catches halfway through. It is signed by a name you recognize. The apothecary's apprentice, the boy with the ink-stained fingers. The one who joked that the plague couldn't take him. He already smelled like medicine. You fold the letter and place it in your satchel. You tell yourself you will remember. That night, the wind changes. You smell it before you hear it. Rain, at first, but underneath, the faintest trace of salt. The sea. It comes through the broken shutters and under the door, curling around your ankles like a ghost. The plague never smelled like this. You step outside. Far on the horizon, where the sky meets the earth, you see torches. Flickering, distant, too many to count. A procession, no soldiers maybe. Or pilgrims, survivors, you cannot tell. But they are moving toward the city, slow and deliberate. You feel your chest tighten. They don't know what waits here. You should warn them. You should write. You should speak. But instead, you stand motionless, hand on your satchel, mask hanging from your side. The wind pulls at your cloak. The torches grow brighter. You wonder if they see you. You wonder what they think you are. A figure in black. Waiting in the ruins. You do not sleep anymore, not in the way a human sleeps. The city keeps a vigil with you, the two of you bound by breathless silence. Each dawn is a gray reprieve, each dusk a closing curtain. You move through it like a specter, your mask fogging with each shallow breath, your hands shaking slightly more each morning, though you never take notice. And then, one morning, something changes. You hear a knock. It is soft. 3 taps, then silence. Then again. Not the wild banging of panic you once heard in the early weeks. Not the desperate hammering of someone begging to be seen. This is deliberate, patient. You open the door. Standing in the street is a girl, 12, maybe 13. Clothed in rags cinched too tightly at the waist. Her eyes are calm, the sort of calm that only comes when everything familiar has already vanished. In her arms, she cradles a cloth-wrapped bundle that does not move. You say nothing. She speaks first. "Please," she says, not begging, "my brother." She holds out the bundle. You step back to let her in. The boy is light. Not breathing, but warm. You remove your gloves and place your hand on his forehead. No sweat, no rash. His lips are pale, but not blue. His pulse a flicker. Still there. You prepare the tincture slowly, methodically, your hands moving by memory. You don't believe it will help. But your belief has long since ceased to be relevant. The ritual is what matters, the motions, the touch. The absurd hope. You wet his lips with a cloth. The girl watches you the entire time, silent, still. You ask her name. She doesn't answer. Instead, she kneels at the boy's side and begins to hum. A quiet tune, ancient. You don't recognize the melody, but it anchors the moment, gives it gravity. You sit across from her, gloved hands on your knees. You do not speak, you simply wait. Hours pass. At some point, the boy stirs. Not a gasp, just a twitch of the hand. His lips part. His eyes flutter. The girl leans closer, placing her hand on his cheek. She whispers. "You're all right." You stare, uncertain whether what you re-witnessing is real, or just a kindness your mind has invented to spare you another failure. But the boy breathes. You watch his chest rise and fall, and you realize you've forgotten what that looks like. You prepare a place for them to sleep. A cot, some linens not yet ruined by mold or rot. You boil water, offer dried figs. You do everything you haven't done in weeks. Everything that once felt routine, now strange. The girl eats slowly, methodically. The boy drinks in small sips. Neither asks who you are, neither seems frightened. You feel the urge to speak, to explain, to say something that might define the moment or honor it. But you have no words left. Only the silence of old rooms, of lost names, of doors that never reopened. That night, you sit beside the fire, unable to sleep. And for the first time in what feels like years, you remove the mask fully. You place it beside you, the bird-like beak pointing toward the hearth. The leather is cracked. The glass eyepiece is smudged, a relic of another version of yourself. You wonder what the children will do in the morning. If they'll stay, if they'll leave, if they'll become another pair of ghosts in the city's long corridor of echoes. You realize it doesn't matter, because for one night, someone lived. And that has to be enough. The next morning brings color, not much, just a hint. A soft blush along the rooftops, a warmer shade in the sky. After so many gray dawns, it feels almost wrong. You stand at the threshold of your door, mask slung around your neck, and stare at the clouds above the eastern road. The breeze carries something foreign. Not rot, not the sweet, sick smell of decay. Something sharper, earthy, familiar, wood smoke. The city, long sealed in silence, begins to murmur. It isn't loud, not yet, but you can feel it, like a pulse returning to a corpse. A cart squeaks somewhere on the main avenue. A shutter slaps against brick. Somewhere, a dog barks and isn't silenced. The two children are still asleep behind you, bundled together beneath a torn tapestry. You don't wake them. You don't know what's coming, but you know it's close. Not yet. You fetch your ledger, brush away the dust, and open it to the last page. You dip the quill in ink and do not write. Not yet. By midday, you see the first rider. He doesn't wear the uniform of any nation you recognize. His horse is gaunt, frothing. He moves fast, not toward the city center, but along the perimeter. Scouting. His eyes are hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He doesn't stop to look at you, even as you stand in the street, visible. But his arrival confirms what the smoke whispered. The world outside has remembered this place, or perhaps it never forgot. You retreat inside. Pack what little you still consider yours. A few vials. Your notes. The folded letter from the apothecary's apprentice. You consider taking the mask, but leave it. It belongs to a man who stayed too long. The children are awake now. The girl stares at you while her brother clutches a piece of bread. You kneel beside her. There are people coming, you say, your voice dry from disuse. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they'll want. She nods, not afraid, just tired. You hesitate. Then you place a small dagger in her hand, an old thing, ceremonial, never used. You kept it once as a relic. Now it feels like a prayer. You don't need to fight, you say, only to decide where you'll go, what you'll do next. That's the only power we ever have left. She grips the blade with both hands. Her brother watches her, then you. You do not tell them to follow. You simply walk. The city changes around you as you move toward the southern gate. Some doors are open now. A woman leans from a window. A boy chases pigeons across a square. You even see smoke from a cooking fire. People returning to their homes, or crawling out of the hiding places where they clung to breath and prayer. Their eyes track you, some curious, some wary, none familiar. And still, the smoke on the horizon grows thicker. By the time you reach the gate, there is a crowd gathered. 30, maybe 40 souls. Most wear cloaks and bandages, masks fashioned from cloth. They murmur to each other in tight clusters. You see no soldiers, no magistrates, no one who might claim to be in charge. And no one dares approach the gate itself, though it stands open. You step through. Outside the wall, the air is clearer. You stand on a road once paved, now cracked and overgrown. To the east, the path curves toward the woods. To the west, it disappears into dust. You look back once. The city looms like a wounded animal, ribs exposed, breath shallow. You don't know why you thought leaving would feel like escape. It doesn't. It feels like burial. As you walk, you pass others heading in the opposite direction. Some bear carts. Some carry infants. Most saying nothing, but you see it in their faces. Hope. Faint, flickering hope, like a match caught in wind. They've heard the city is quiet now, that the plague has passed, that the danger is done. You do not speak to them. You cannot take that match from their hands. Farther down the road, you find the camp. It isn't an army. It isn't a relief mission. It is something in between. Tents, fires, banners without emblems. Men and women in piecemeal armor, some bearing crucifixes, others talismans from older gods. Mercenaries, perhaps, or zealots. They stop you at the edge of the camp, ask who you are, where you came from. You tell them the truth. You were the doctor. For a moment, they are silent. Then they let you pass. One of them mutters a prayer when you walk by. You are not sure if it's for you or against you. That night, you sleep outside the camp, beneath a half-dead tree on ground hard with roots. And you dream of the city as it once was, before the rot, before the silence, of a child's laughter, of herbs drying on hooks above a fire, of a woman's voice you cannot quite place. You see the ledger open on your lap and a hand reaching from behind to write a name. You wake with tears already drying on your face. In your lap lies the dagger. You do not remember taking it back. You do not remember seeing the girl. You look toward the campfires and wonder if any flame truly burns for you. The road winds like a question you're not ready to answer. You've walked all morning, slow and steady, as if the city's breath still clings to your back. The camp is a smudge on the horizon now, its tents lost among the heat waves rising from cracked earth. You've said nothing since waking, not even to yourself. Words feel brittle. Every sound risks breaking this spell of forward motion, and you're afraid to test what's left of your resolve. Dust cakes the soles of your boots. Your throat is dry. You chew a strip of something leathery and bitter that a traveler once claimed was meat. You believe him only because the lie helped it go down easier. The dagger rests at your side, strapped to your belt now. You haven't drawn it. You haven't decided if it's protection, penance, or proof that you still exist. The road gives you no answers, only more horizon. You reach a crossroads by noon. 3 paths, no signs, no markers. Just the way you came, and 2 new directions carved through dead grass and old stone. One leads toward distant hills, gray, gentle, unremarkable. The other cuts into forest, dark and thick with trees that look like they've never known human hands. You sit on a low wall and watch dust curl across the junction like smoke. The world feels paused, as if even the birds are holding their breath. Then you hear the song, soft, childlike, a woman's voice, humming some old tune that shouldn't be alive anymore. You rise without thinking and follow it, not to the hills, not into the woods, but off the path entirely. Through tall grass, down a slope, toward a sunken clearing where the air is strangely cool. There, beneath a canopy of ash trees, stands a cottage. It looks impossibly clean. Whitewashed walls, green shutters, a fence mended with care. Smoke curls from the chimney. Herbs hang by the door. A wind chime of bones clatters softly in the breeze. The song is coming from inside. You should walk away. You should run. But you knock. The woman who opens the door is neither young nor old. Her skin is dark and unlined, her eyes sharp. She wears no apron, no cap, no jewelry save for a plain ring on one hand. She studies you for a long moment, your maskless face, your threadbare cloak, the glint of steel at your side. Then she nods slowly and opens the door wider. You step inside. The smell is overwhelming. Not rot, not plague. Clean things. Sharp things. Vinegar, rosemary, tallow soap. Shelves of labeled jars line the walls, each more neatly arranged than anything you ever managed in your own practice. There is a cot, a hearth, a basin still warm from use. You were one of them, she says. It is not a question. You nod. And now? I don't know. She doesn't speak again for a while. Just pours water into a cup and hands it to you. You drink. You sit. The cup is wood. The seat is rough. But you cannot remember the last time you felt this safe, or this afraid. She tells you her name is Isala. You're not sure if it's true. She never says what she is. Not quite healer, not quite witch. She speaks with the confidence of someone who no longer explains herself to anyone. As night falls, she prepares a small meal: lentils, boiled greens, bread still warm from the coals. You eat like a man recovering from hunger he didn't know he had. Only after you're full does she ask, "How many did you bury?" You freeze. Not at the question, but at the ease with which she asked it. No venom, no accusation. Just the calm of someone who's already done her weeping. You don't answer. You don't need to. She sees the number in your eyes. "I was a child," she says, "when it came to our village. My mother bled from the nose for 2 days. My sister coughed black until her teeth fell out. The healer packed our bodies with herbs and prayers. I lived. They didn't. You listen. Not because she demands it, but because something in you needs to hear it, like blood needing to remember the beat of a heart. When she finishes, she stands. You can stay tonight. But leave by morning. We all have our ghosts. I've made peace with mine. Don't bring yours inside. You lie on the cot but don't sleep. You stare at the ceiling. You watch candlelight flicker across old beams. You trace the knot in the wood above your head like it's a star chart. Your body aches, but it's the ache of someone not ready to stop. At dawn, you rise. She is already awake, tending to herbs in the garden. You thank her. She says nothing. Just nods once, the way a grave nods when you visit someone you used to know. You leave through the trees. The forest is colder today. Later, as the sun climbs and the birds remember their song, you find the road again. You choose the path through the woods. Not because it's safer, but because it's darker. Because the man who walked out of that city has no use for open sky. The forest closes around you like a question with no answer. The canopy thickens, filtering sunlight into shards of pale gold. Beneath your feet, the path is soft with old pine needles and damp soil. There are no more crossroads now. Just the trail ahead, narrow and winding, as though nature itself is testing your resolve to keep walking. The silence here is different. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of something watching. You feel it in the shift of leaves, in the brittle snap of a branch that wasn't under your foot. Not threatening, just observant. The forest does not judge you, but it remembers. Everything here seems older than you, not in years, but in wisdom. The kind earned by outlasting storms, by burying roots deeper than any tombstone. You think of Rome, of Cairo, of Paris, all the cities clawing to forget, but this place has never needed to. It simply waits. And you walk. You come upon a structure at midday, not quite a house. Not quite a ruin. It was once a chapel, maybe. The bones of it still stand, arched windows without glass, moss curling around broken columns. The roof is half collapsed, but the doorway remains intact. A faded carving above it reads, "Vita silentium est." Life is silence. You step inside. The air is cooler here. Smells of old stone and damp earth. Someone has been here recently. Dried reeds bundled in a corner, a circle of stones blackened by fire. You kneel by the hearth and touch the ash. Still warm. You're not alone. But you don't call out. Instead, you sit. Let the stillness settle around you. For the first time in weeks, you remove your gloves. Your hands look older than they should. Skin like paper, fingernails are darkened at the edges. You flex them, they shake. You don't try to stop it. Then a voice breaks the quiet. You never wash the masks properly. You turn slowly. A man stands in the shadows by the far wall. Tall, hooded. The voice is familiar in the way. Nightmares are familiar, recognized without ever being remembered. You squint, trying to place him. You, he says, taught others how to pack the herbs. Told them clove for cough, wormwood for breath. But you never listened to your own words. Never burned the robes quickly enough. Never wept long enough. You open your mouth, but no words come. He steps into the light, and it's you. Your own face, pale, hollow, bruised by guilt in places no blade could reach. His hands are stained red, not fresh but ancient. The kind of stain that seeps through time and never dries. You think this forest is your exile, he says. It isn't, it's your echo. You try to speak, I did what I could. I tried. But the other you just shakes his head, slowly. No, you watched. You counted bodies. You studied fevers like they were puzzles. You wrote letters to cities that burned before your ink dried. You were a scholar in a graveyard, calling it medicine. The shame is not sudden. It has been with you since the first child died beneath your hands. Since the woman you couldn't save bled through her mask while whispering your name. It has shaped your gait, your breath, the weight of your own reflection. But never like this. Never aloud. You don't remember leaving the chapel. You're just walking again. The trees look different now, less like witnesses, more like mourners. You pass a tree carved with initials, 2 letters and a year. 1349. You know what that year means. You stop by a stream, kneel, wash your hands though they aren't dirty. The other face is gone, but his words linger. You studied fevers like they were puzzles. Maybe that's still true. Maybe even now, a part of you hopes for some diagnosis that will make this story make sense. Some formula of pain and cure that turns memory into redemption. But the plague was never a riddle. It was a sentence. And you've only just begun to serve it. You camp in a clearing, no fire, no shelter. You sleep against a log and dream of masks. Not the beaked kind, the social kind. The ones you wore to reassure widows, to calm magistrates, to make the dying believe they were not alone. But they were, you all were, and still are. When morning comes, it's quiet, too quiet. You rise to find the forest empty of birds, the air still. A low mist clings to the ground. You stand there a long time, listening for something, anything, a cry, a cough, a voice like your own. But all you hear is your breath, rasping and human. Still alive, the forest opens at last. Not into a road, or a town, or a return to civilization, but into a field, wide, silent, covered in white flowers swaying like a sea of small, nameless prayers, the kind that grow on forgotten graves, the kind no one plants. You step into it carefully, as if you're trespassing. Because you are. Somewhere, not far beneath your boots, lie the remnants of a village. You can't see it now. Time and rot have done their work, but your body knows. You feel it in your chest. A pressure, a familiarity. This is where it ended. This is where you left them. You kneel. There's no marker, no stones, no names. But you remember the faces. A child with curls. A midwife who hummed as she worked. The man who carried his wife on his back, whispering to her even as her lungs filled with blackened blood. You buried them all. No one asked you to. The other doctors had long since left. But you stayed, dug with your hands, prayed with a voice that cracked, lit candles that flickered in the wind and called it ritual, even though you'd stopped believing. You remember every shovel stroke, not because it was noble, because it wasn't enough. You removed the beaked mask. The leather is stiff now, cracked at the edges. The herbs inside have long since lost their scent. You set it in the grass beside you, almost tenderly. It looks smaller than you remember. Like something a child might wear in a play. A costume, not armor. You remove the gloves next, then the coat. Each layer peels away like the shedding of a skin that no longer fits. Beneath it, you're just a man. Bones, blood, memory, and guilt. You lie down. The flowers bend around you. For the first time in months, your body doesn't ache. Not from walking. Not from remembering. Not from the weight of a world you couldn't save. You stare up at the sky, and the clouds move like slow ships, pale and drifting. You wonder if this is what the sick saw in their final minutes. Not heaven, not angels. Just sky soft and endless. A mercy of color. You let your eyes close. And then you feel it. A warmth at your side. You open your eyes to see a girl sitting beside you. Barefoot, freckled, hair like flax. Her hands are in her lap, holding something, a small bouquet of the white flowers. She doesn't speak, but she looks at you the way no one has in years. Like she sees you, like she forgives you. You blink, and she's gone. Or maybe she was never there. It doesn't matter. Later, much later, someone will find the mask. A traveler maybe, or another doctor. A scholar of lost things. They'll lift it from the field with care, noting the stitching, the faded lining, the initials scratched into the chin strap. They'll take it back to some museum or archive, wondering who wore it, what stories it could tell, but they won't find a body. There will be no bones, only flowers and wind, and a silence that feels somehow like peace.